Bowel cancer is the fourth most common cancer in the UK, with nearly 120 new cases reported daily. You likely know someone who has had it. I've lost two people to the disease, my beloved grandma and my friend Sam, who tragically died, aged only 33. It's also the second most common cancer death. Yet half of UK adults never take up a screening invitation and often choose to ignore signs that something may be wrong, perhaps embarrassed about seeking help when it comes to problems with poo. In fact, 1 in 15 men and 1 in 18 women will get it, with half of the cases preventable and largely down to poor diet and health. Since Bowel babe Dame Deborah James went public with her own heartbreaking battle against the disease, some of that taboo has been bravely smashed, but more still needs to be done to keep people aware of the symptoms so they can get the treatment to help keep them alive. Joining me on the show to talk about this is oncologist and former chief of the World Health Organization's cancer program, Dr. Karol Sikora. Fantastic to have you on. Are people still uncomfortable talking about these issues?
They are. Bowel cancer is the most difficult one. Breast cancer is sort of socially acceptable. People know where the breast is. They understand it's a female basic disease. But bowel cancer affects both sexes more or less equally. And the problem is that the compliance, the uptake of the screening test that has been around now for nearly a decade is much lower than for, say, mammograms for breast cancer in women or for cervical cancer screening. The test is a little unpleasant. You have to collect a bit of poo and put a stick on it, and it measures the amount of blood there. It's a pretty crude test, and if it's positive, you have an endoscopy where a tube's passed up the back passage to look inside. Early cancer of the bowel is totally curable, 95%, but late cancer, once it spreads, is almost definitely a death sentence. So catching cancer, this type of cancer early, is really important.
Who's eligible to go for those cancer screenings at present?
I think the difficulty is it's a home test. You don't have to make an appointment. You don't have to go anywhere. If it's positive, obviously you do. The test is not totally reliable. There's lots of causes of blood in the poo, the commonest being piles or an abrasion because you've been constipated and so on, and the lining leaks a little bit of blood. The test is very sophisticated now. It doesn't just detect blood, it detects blood that's been destroyed by enzymes, so it's likely that it's come from further up the bowel. The commonest site of bowel cancer is actually in the descending colon, where the colon turns round and joins the rectum. That's the commonest site. So picking that up early would really be life-saving for a lot of people.
And do you think people, when they might have digestive issues, tend to think, well, because you might have a squiffy stomach from something you've eaten or a bit of a stomach bug, or perhaps your diet's been a bit poor, which has affected the nature of your stools, that people might have a tendency to ignore some of the early warning signs?
Well, we all get funny bowel symptoms. You just go out for a good night on the town and you come back feeling pretty rough and maybe a bit of tummy pain, a bit of noise, a bit of bubbling going on. But it's when things persist, and more importantly, when they progress and persist. In other words, they just every day you feel a bit worse. You feel maybe you lose a bit of weight, you've got a bit of diarrhea one day, a bit of constipation the next day, and you just don't feel right. Or you get some bloating in the tummy where the tummy swells up for no reason. These are the sorts of things you really have to go to the GP. It's a hassle. I know that GPs are difficult to get to see, but if you go along, they can check you out, they can examine you, and if necessary, refer you within 2 weeks to see a specialist that will make or deny the diagnosis, which is what you want. You need to get it all sorted out. Women are more forward about doing that than men in this country. In other countries, it's about equal, but here, women are much better at looking after themselves, and they're sort of the family doctor for their families normally, and they encourage husbands and sons to actually go and seek medical help, and that's really important.
Dr. Karol Sikora, thank you so much for coming on and talking about this hugely important topic. I really do appreciate it and all of your hard work. Well, let's go back to my studio guest, Patrick O'Flynn. Bowel cancer kills more men than women. Men less likely, however, to go to the doctor when it comes to what they might perceive to be embarrassing conditions. What's going on there? What goes on in men's minds?
Well, I'm probably as guilty as anyone that the threshold of pain or discomfort before you actually admit you might need to go and see a doctor it just seems to be that bit higher. I suppose many men go many years, if touch wood they're in good health as young men, without needing to see a doctor. And there's perhaps something in the male psyche that, particularly as a younger man, one considers oneself kind of immortal, able to do anything, and then you're not in the habit of consulting and seeing your GP regularly, which I think most women are, particularly ones who've have pregnancies. Once childbirth and motherhood comes in, I think regular visits to various health professionals just becomes second nature. So that's all I can think, really. I must say that Dame Deborah James, potentially by raising the profile of this cancer, which I didn't know very much about, and about the numbers of people dying from it, she potentially will save, hundreds of lives, although tragically not her own.
Yeah, no, you're right. Patrick, thank you ever so much.